I think we are finally done with the changes. I have tried to make this video for the past 2 weeks now to no avail because new things keep changing every single day, but I think we're done for now. Hello there, Flip here, and today, for those of you who are unaware, there's going to be another stellar banner running alongside Sandrones and possibly all of 6.7, we're not really sure on the timeline, where the buffed characters like Wriothesley, Cyno, Yae Miko, and Qiqi will be appearing. And since all of these units got buffed, I think it's going to be nice to reevaluate them and discuss how much they're worth pulling, as well as how good they're shaping up to be in the current meta, as well as discussing their early vertical investment like their C1s and C2s and weapon, since some weapons are also getting buffed. But before we do that, as always, if at any points during the video you are entertained or informed, make sure to drop a like and even consider subscribing, as I talk on various topics regarding Genshin's meta, and I'll try to keep you updated. Shout out to my lovely channel members, I really appreciate your support, it means the world to me. I surprisingly haven't gotten sick this month, I hope the curse hasn't been passed down to one of you, and there's no sponsor for today's video, so let's just get right into it. Well, actually that's a lie, because before talking about how good the characters are, I really hope for either two outcomes, which most likely won't be happening because it's Hoyoverse, or at least it's the Genshin sect of Hoyoverse, because I am kind of salty if this is just treated as a normal banner, because I really feel like this should be a selector if anything, and if we can't at the least have that, then there shouldn't be a 50-50 on this banner at all, or they should maybe even lower the pity, because I can understand the fact that these units are being buffed and everything and they're basically going to be new characters, but none of these characters themselves are able to enable the Stellar Conduct reaction, so you're going to have to pull for a Stellar Conduct support in the future unless Cryo MC is able to do it by himself, so it just feels really odd to make this not a selector in my opinion, or at least make it have the same rules as normal banners. And they're able to change the rules of banners, they've done it in ZZZ, and HSR hands out free characters like candy, so I really don't think it's too much to ask for. Anyways, getting into the characters from the least to most valuable to pull for, I'm putting Qiqi at the bottom, and this is honestly irregardless of her strength. Qiqi is just a free character. You'll be able to pick her up for free from the standard selector, there's no real point of pulling her directly, and I'm guessing most people who've played the game most likely already have a Qiqi, and sorry for the spoiler warning, but none of Qiqi's constellations are good besides her C6, and her C6 is around a 10% team DPS increase, so there's no point in going out of your way to go for it. But I'm getting ahead of myself. What does buffed Qiqi do? She's essentially going to be the de facto sustain for Stellar Conduct teams currently, and all of her buffs were aimed at making her a better sustain and support. With the fact that she now thankfully generates energy, her skill will now generate 2 particles on hit every 6 seconds. Speaking of her skill, it also received more buffs and now having a 15-second cooldown when Qiqi is in the Stellar Conduct state, and while active, whenever your active character hits an opponent, Qiqi will be able to fire a coordinated attack every 2.2 seconds. And lastly, the thing that makes Qiqi so good for Stellar Conduct teams in particular is the fact that she gives a team-wide 50% Stellar Conduct buff, which is of course very good, considering she's doing all of these things while having quite good healing. She's pretty much just a better Diona who also got buffed in these teams, as she's able to be played in quite short rotations, on top of her buffs being team-wide, and because Qiqi isn't really in competition outside of Stellar Conduct teams, most likely you are going to be playing her. There are still some issues with Qiqi though. For one, again, she's a standard character, she's free, no one should be pulling for her, and then on top of this, the next thing is that even though she is good on these teams, she isn't irreplaceable. Diona isn't that much of a downgrade to Qiqi, and other supports like Escoffier or Nicole are able to be competitive if not better than Qiqi, at least until Qiqi is C6, where she just becomes the best out of all of them. So again, please don't feel pressured to pull for Qiqi, she's a very good slot in Stellar Conduct teams, that's really about it. In regards to how to build her, just put her on tenacity. She doesn't really need any substats for her buffs, but she does need attack for her healing, so if you care about that, just run her on attack main stats. As for weapons, this also doesn't really matter that much, just put her on anything with an attack percent substat or Favonius, both work fine. Now moving on to the boys. Wriothesley and Cyno were also changed into being Stellar Conduct DPSs. Both of them are now about as good as each other, we do not talk about the Cyno nerfs, and to summarize what changed for them, regarding Wriothesley, his 3rd and 5th hit of his normal attack string as well as his charge attack, when in a Stellar Conduct field, will now deal Stellar Conduct damage, and also his healing from his charge attack is now more consistent. That's basically it. For Cyno, he did receive receive more changes. Like with Wriothesley when Cyno is in a Stellar Conduct field, whenever he uses his End-Seer attack, which is his special eye attack in his burst state, that now does Stellar Conduct damage. And via his Ascension 4 will now be increased by 600% of his elemental mastery as a quill. But also, irregardless of the Stellar Conduct changes, whenever Cyno uses his skill and he isn't in his burst state, he will enter his burst state for 6 seconds, for free essentially. And you also get the same benefits as when in his burst regularly, which is a very nice quality of life increase, and also allows Cyno to be played in short quick swap-ish rotations. And since Cyno C1 is basically free, we can talk about it too, he basically just gives himself 200 EM. It's quite good, and if you have Cyno you should probably get it. Anyways, numbers, how good are Cyno and Wriothesley now? Before I show them, I just want you guys to keep in mind that they're under the same restrictions as Sandrone, if not even more. Cyno and Wriothesley don't technically really have buffs, unless you pull for Sandrone also, who kind of just replaces them as a DPS, because Sandrone is the only character that can enable Stellar Conduct reactions to take place. So you'll have to wait till 7.0 to hopefully have Cryo Traveler enable it, or you have to pull for a new limited character that does. So when looking at the calculations I'm going to show, keep in mind that Wriothesley and Cyno have Sandrone as a dead slot, who isn't doing anything besides enabling their reaction. And also keep in mind we're missing things like a supportive set for Stellar Conduct teams. But even with that in mind, both Wriothesley and Cyno's numbers still look pretty good, with Wriothesley bordering on 110k DPS, while Cyno's comfortably above 100k. And these are also going to be characters receiving supports for the next year, while actually having synergy with the Stellar Conduct reaction and not just being wheelchaired by it. So if you want to know if Cyno and Wriothesley are good after their buffs, the answer is technically yes, but there are a few caveats to this. For one, unless you already own the characters, Sandrone is like in this patch too, and she's better than both Cyno and Wriothesley. So why pull for Cyno or Wriothesley when you can just get Sandrone who's better than them? Then not only that, but if you've been paying attention throughout the video, we can now discuss the unavoidable, Yae Miko. Yae Miko is extremely strong for Stellar Conduct teams. She is by far the most important support, or sub-DPS to Stellar Conduct teams right now. She's basically the Inefa of this archetype, if not arguably stronger. And again, unless you already have Cyno or Wriothesley, you'll have to get both the DPS you want and Yae in the same patch, which is a lot of pulls, on top of you maybe even needing another Stellar Conduct support in 7.0. So unless we know what that 7.0 support does, it is very hard to recommend pulling for any of the DPSs right now, as we don't know if the 7.0 support will make up for the lack of a Yae on your team. So kind of like with Qiqi, Cyno and Wriothesley are quite strong DPSs now, and will continuously get support for the next year, which is great, on top of being Stellar Conduct checks. But if you don't currently own them, I don't see a reason why you'd pull for them over Sandrone, especially if you don't also own Yae right now, especially considering the fact that these characters can't even trigger Stellar Conduct by themselves. So I would really wait until 7.0 to make a decision on this. So to stress this again, they're good units, yes. It's probably not worth pulling for them though. Now let's talk about the honored one herself, Yae Miko. For starters, at C0 her turrets just last longer and they no longer reset when using her elemental burst. And when in stellar fields, Yae Miko can gain a quill that increases her turret's damage, on top of getting additional Stellar Conduct hits, once per 3 hits assuming Stellar Conduct was triggered. So at a base she's just become a much more consistent damage dealer for Stellar Conduct. But on top of this, if you get Yae C1 which is free, she also offers a team-wide 50% Stellar Conduct damage bonus, making her both a great buffer and sub-DPS for this team archetype. Yae Miko is so good in this role that I don't really see a reality in which she gets power crept, at least not anytime soon, so I feel like she's a very safe investment to make, but just in case, please wait until we know what the 7.0 support does, as leaks are saying they're an Electro character, but even if they're an Electro character, that doesn't mean they necessarily replace Yae, and with the new Stellar Conduct changes, it's more likely that they're used alongside Yae, but hopefully it's like an Illawa Linnea situation, to where they're good enough to side-grade Yae if you don't have her. And to anyone wondering, a few weeks ago I made the claim that getting Sandrone's signature weapon was better than getting Yae. That is sadly no longer the case, as Yae has only gotten buffed more throughout the beta cycle, and all the changes have seemingly made Yae just a better character for supporting Stellar Conduct in general, so the biggest thing you can do for Sandrone is get a C1 Yae. But honestly, irregardless if you're pulling on any of the characters in this banner, I would just wait for what the 7.0 support is going to do, and watching my videos on how good they're going to be, before making any polling decisions. As for the most accurate advice to be given out, you would need the context of what the next Regent units are going to do. Just keep in mind that these units can only really get better from here on out. Now let's take an updated look into how good these units' vertical investment is. For Qiqi, Please get nothing on Qiqi. As I said before, there's nothing really worth pulling for her besides her C6, and even then that's something you can obtain for free, and her C6 isn't really that impactful anyways, only being around a 10% damage increase, so please just ignore her stuff for now. Regarding Cyno, it is kind of sad because his weapon isn't running alongside him, and as you can see from this infographic here, his weapon is a very big damage increase over the other weapons Cyno can currently run, so you can only really get his constellations. There isn't much of a choice there, but don't worry, his C1 and 2 are very good. Oh, and regarding what his C2 does, it's just both a ramping Electro damage bonus and ramping Stellar Conducts damage bonus. For Wriothesley, he isn't given up for free in the Constellation Selector, but you will be able to pull for his weapon. His weapon got buffed to also buff Stellar Conduct damage bonus, so it's still going to be very useful for him. And regarding his C1 and C2, they really aren't that complicated. His C1 just tacks on a passive where his N5 increases the damage of his charge attack, and vice versa, with the 50% Stellar Conduct damage bonus, and you do also get the 4 seconds extension. All things considered, his C1 isn't that good, actually, and because getting Wriothesley's charge attack in Stellar Conduct teams is much easier, it doesn't even give you the quality of life from that either, so his C1 is both no longer really a quality of life or that big of a damage increase. His C2, however, got massively buffed even outside of Stellar Conduct teams, as it does keep its base effect in buffing the elemental burst, but now on top of this, when Wriothesley's in a Stellar Conduct field, his stellar hits deal more damage, and even when Wriothesley isn't in a Stellar Conduct field, his base, normal, and charge attacks do more damage. So his C2 is now very good and a massive damage increase. His C2 with a 3-man team is a bit ahead of C1 Sandrone with a full team, so I can actually see a reality where C2 Wriothesley and C2 Sandrone are neck and neck in damage, since Wriothesley's constellations are just stronger than Sandrone's right now, which is kind of funny to think about. Now the last character to discuss is going to be Yae, and because she's a sub DPS, I'm going to look at her team-wide impact for a Sandrone team. Please just get Yae's constellations. Her signature weapon isn't really worth it. Yae C1 is also free, which is a 50% Stellar Conduct damage bonus to the team. This is a 13% team DPS increase, so please, if you have the ability to do so, get it. And Yae C2 is also a 13% team DPS increase, so it's just as good. And I think that's it. So with that, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like, subscribe, and comment who you're pulling for on this banner if you are, as I would love to hear it and respond to almost every single comment. Channel members, thank you so much for your continued support. It means the world to me. I love you all. Thank you to everyone else for watching the video, and I'll see you guys on the flip side. Peace.